What's up, guys, and welcome to the Work Toward Wonder podcast. Let's go. Guys, we are so happy that you're here, and today I have Kelcie.
Hello.
She is my youth pastor. So to start off every podcast, we ask our guests, what does wonder mean to you?
So wonder means to me is like God is all wonder. Like he's always, you're always learning something new about him. You're always finding something in him, with him, and within yourself. And so it's always like your faith journey is just a wonder, like a wonder walk, I should say.
That's
So,
awesome.
Yeah.
Like living the wonder walk.
Yeah.
That's awesome.
Yeah.
Today, Kelcie is going to be sharing her testimony with us. So let's get into it.
Okay. So part of my testimony, so this is one of many of them in my life, but to start it off, I was speaking to God at some point in one part of my life, and I always prayed to God at like the beginning of the year for words, just to guide my life in that year.
Like a New Year's resolution, I think.
Yeah. Kind of, yes, but words instead, because I'm not a person that likes to stick to like
I got that. Yeah.
And so I was praying for words for him to give me, and I got like at one point it was like just something to live by. And so for like 3 years, I just worked on one word a year. And so this specific year I was praying, and multiple nights in a row, he just didn't give me a word. And I'm like, what is going on?
Yeah.
And so I kept praying and just kept going after it. And I was laying in bed one night, and I was like, God, like, what is it? What are we going to work towards? And he just, in a small voice, was like, sticks and bricks. And I said, sticks and bricks.
What is that supposed to mean?
Yeah. I remember specifically being like,
yeah,
I don't even think that was you, Lord.
Yeah,
like, you know what I mean? Like,
it
was
praying for like this big word. You kept praying or waiting, and it was like sticks and bricks.
Yes.
Like,
yes. And
okay.
so I was just like, I don't know if this was you. And so at first I was like, I'm not even going to write this down, because I have this thing when I'm sleeping, God speaks to me a lot, or when I'm just laying in bed,
me too.
not having any thoughts in my brain, that he speaks to me. And so I always keep like in my notes in my phone.
On your phone, I keep a notebook next to my bed.
Yeah. So in my notes in my phone, I always keep something. And at first I was like, I'm not even writing this down, because that makes no sense at all. And it's crazy to me. And so, and then the next night, he just kept repeating it to me. And so I'm like, okay, this has got to mean something. Yeah. And so I wrote it down in my notes and went on about my life, because I was like, this makes no sense. And so that year I kind of struggled a lot. Like I didn't have what I thought would be my guidance of my word or whatever to live by. And then I just went through a lot of heartache and big changes in my life. And so I just went on about my life that whole year and didn't hear anything about sticks and bricks from God. And so the next year came, and that was the year your family moved to Iowa. And we were doing a women's Bible study together, and it was Beth Moore, The Quest. That's when it was. And we were in the middle of the Bible study, and we get to like, I think it was like the 3rd chapter in the book. And that night, sticks was revealed to me. It was a part in Beth Moore where she said that like in your faith walk, a lot of the times you have to pick up your walking stick and you have to go. And so I was like, okay, like that makes sense. Like you need to move forward. And so I was just like, okay, that's cool. Like I was getting ready to start my own business. So I was like, this is all kind of making sense to me, you know, pick up your stick and go. And I was like, okay. And so went on about my life. I was like, okay, I got the stick part, God, like what else? And so that took me 2 years to get though. Like that wasn't just 1 year and it was done.
So it like took time, but you only got like halfway. So like when you were in that moment, did you ever find yourself like frustrated or like discouraged? Like, was this even from the Lord?
Yeah. And also in that time I was going through a lot of things. And so I just was like, at first I was just like, that wasn't even him speaking to me. Like, what am I doing? And so I, again, just continued with my life and went through the motions of every day that he was guiding me through a career change and all the things. And so I just picked my stick up and kept moving, trucking along. And so that it was the next year that we went through everything with Gannon when so I had went to a women's retreat, which was your mom's retreat, and I just got filled with the word, and it was just a great weekend. And I came back after that weekend, that night that we came back, and we had an emergency with my youngest son, and he had to quit breathing right after we put him to bed. And thank the Lord that my husband heard him kind of struggling. And so I ended up having to do CPR on our son, which was one of the scariest moments in my life. And so after that had happened, and doing CPR on your own son and just going through that, like, I questioned God for a really long time. And I went through a really bad state of depression and fear-ridden life, and just like tormenting thoughts in my brain. And it's something that I just couldn't move past for a really long time. It actually, like, the only thing that got me out of it was taking medication. And so getting on medication and moving on and pressing into the Lord and all the things, I finally got out of that. But in the midst of that, I still didn't know what bricks was. You know what I mean? Like, I was still like questioning what is this? And so after I kind of get going on medication and get going on my life with the Lord, after I've been struggling for so long in that, like, it was like how I explained it to everyone that I love around me. It was like I was in a pit, and no matter how much I tried to climb out of it, it just kept filling and filling and filling, and I just could not get out of it. And so obviously my husband and God and my friends and all the people praying for me, like, I finally made it out of it. But like
that community.
Yes.
Because if you were on your own, you would have never. The only way for a person in a pit to get out of the pit is to have someone help them out.
Yes. Yeah. And so the only way to get out was to have them people. But I just continued to press forward, even though I felt I just didn't want to. Like, at that time, we were just like, no, I don't want to do this anymore. And so it took about another year to get back to where I was going. And I started pressing into the word again and getting pretty back and close into my walk and getting more involved in things, and because at that time when I was struggling, I was just so closed off. Like, I just put on this front. Obviously I still went to church and all the things, and youth group, and did all the things, but like, I was just so closed off and hard. Like, I was hard. Like, don't talk to me, don't look at me. Like,
sometimes in our faith walk, like, we get on this really good path, and so you're like going forward, and then you feel like you hit a brick wall, and you take some steps back, and instead of like, we keep pushing forward, but we tend to like seclude ourselves. And so like, when you go to church, you put on this like fake smile. And like, I just want to tell you guys today, putting on that fake smile doesn't get you anywhere.
No.
Because people can't help you unless you ask, or unless like you allow people like in your life. And so we talk about that pit, like, you had your like close friends who like helped you get out. Just because you leaned into it.
And it took me a while to lean into that, because at first, like, I didn't want to live in it, but I was just so tormented. Like, I can't even explain the thoughts that would go through my brain. Like, just things, like, I was just filled with, and I know it was the enemy. He was just after my mind to say, like, this is going to happen to him again, and like, it's going to happen to your other children. And it was just like tormenting.
The most important thing in your life besides the Lord and your husband is your kids. And like, you almost lost him, and it's like, like, what do you even do? Because you're like, God spoke to you, and you start to like have this revealing, and then like, you hit rock bottom, like, my son almost died. And then you try to like press forward, but you're like, God, where are you? Because you revealed half your vision to me. And the enemy was like, oh my gosh, she's hearing from the Lord. Like, it's time for me to do my thing, And so like, he's tormenting you, and it's real. Like, spirits and everything is real. Feeling tormented by the enemy and having fear, it's real. But like 2 Timothy 1:7 is, God does not give you a spirit of fear. And so even though you may feel fearful or feel anxious or feel depressed, you do not speak that over your life. Like, I think of like some songs, some secular songs, and they're like, it just talks about like, I have depression or I am anxious. The trend that's like, it's my anxiety. Like, but like, you don't want to speak that over your life, because if you're living in that, if you're already being tormented and already feeling fearful or anxious, and you allow yourself to speak that over you, like, the power of life and death is in the tongue. And so you can't allow yourself to be like, I am fearful, I am anxious, I am depressed, because that's not who you are. And that's not who God says you are. But in the midst of that, it feels like your identity. Because you like hide, and you're like, this is who I am. Instead, you need to bring that like hardness to the light. And be like, the Lord is he's gonna do the work. I may not feel it now, but the Lord's gonna do work.
And with that, like, once you make it your identity, it is so hard to get
away
out
from
of
it.
Yes, because you're like, I'm just a depressive person, or I'm just an anxious person. And you can be anxious, but not make it who you are. Like,
because your identity isn't anything but in the Lord. It's not in anything but Jesus. And so anything that contradicts who God is, anything, whether that be anxiety, depression, stress, fear, when people talk bad on you, like, whatever it is, if it does not match what the words of the Bible say or who the Lord is, that's not who you are. And you just have to capture those thoughts. Like, thinking these thoughts aren't bad, thinking like I have anxiety or thinking I have depression, but then taking captive and be like, this is not who the Lord says I am, and getting rid of it and not allowing it to come back and torment you over and over again.
And it's something that I tell, especially you girls in the youth group, so much, because so many kids, especially like in this generation, they like cling on to it. Like, it's like a trend to be depressed. And I would say that a lot of people do struggle with it. It's like, I'm not saying that against any of it, because I've been there before and I know what it feels like. It's absolutely the worst thing to ever deal with. But some people think it's like a good thing to hold on to, and it's so terrible. Like, you don't understand. Like, I just know so many people that hold on to it and just use that as a source to, I don't know, just
even like as a crutch, like blaming everything on me being anxious or me being depressed.
And there's so many ways to overcome it. You just let it go.
You have a life to live. And if you're constantly dragging, like, it's like I'm trying to run a mile, but like every time I claim that I'm depressed or I'm anxious or I'm stressed, that I'm carrying that baggage, so I'm throwing a chain around my neck. And so I'm still trying to run live, but like I have all this baggage I'm trying to carry, and I can't run the race the Lord has for me and do it well when I'm carrying all this baggage. And like, it is so popular, like you said today, to feel anxious and stressed and depressed, because you see it all over the internet. But it's weird, because people will like say that they're anxious and depressed, but I feel like some people aren't seeking help. That they're just like, this is who I am, and that's it. Like, that's where I'm gonna be. And like, that's not who you're called to be. Like, you're not called to be stuck. You're called to move forward. Like, pick up your stick and walk. And like, isn't it crazy? Like, the Lord told you, like, you have this vision. The first half, he's like, pick up your stick and walk. And then you go through this hard time, but you have the Lord's word. It's like, okay, pick up my stick and walk. Like, let's go.
And in the midst of that, like, I think it was also like, he knew this was going to happen. Like, and so pick it up and keep going.
Like, don't give up.
Going. Don't stop. Don't allow it to, and I did stop for a little bit. I'm gonna admit to you, like, I did. It paralyzed me. I was paralyzed. And so, but look, it's so important to have those people that are going to surround you and lift you up and be your faith, because sometimes you just don't have it in you to do it yourself. And it's so important to surround yourself with God loving and God fearing people, because if you don't, there's going to be times in life where you have to have that. And you need it.
There's nothing wrong with struggling. I feel like so many people are like, I have to put on this face and I have to be perfect and I have to have my life figured out. But there's nothing wrong with asking for help. That is the reason, like, the Lord's like, get a good friend circle, like, get people who love me and who know me, because you will stumble and fall. But like the Bible talks about, like, woe is the person who does not have someone to pick them up when they stumble. So like, have that friend group. And that's why who you surround yourself is the most important thing.
So important.
Besides your salvation in Jesus, who you surround yourself is the most important thing. Because those are the people you turn to when life gets hectic and when life goes wrong. And if they are not people who love and fear the Lord, then your life is only going to get worse. There's only one direction it can go, backwards or forward. And when you have those people pulling you back, you can't keep going forward.
And with that, like you saying that you only have the direction backward or forward with God, like you either choose to follow him or you don't.
You don't. There's no gray. It's black or white.
You don't want to see what it's like when you don't follow him. Like I remember, like, because we've almost lost Gannon twice. Like, and that's why I know he has a big calling on his life, because like the devil was after him. Yeah. And we pray against it every day till this day because of it. But like when he was born, we had complications at birth and stuff. And I remember, like, after the chaos had subsided and we got to talk to our pastor and all the things, like me and David both looked at each other and we were like, if we didn't have God, like what would you do? Yeah. Like it was either choose to pray and just stay like in the midst of him and like fall at his feet. That's the only choice we had, because if we didn't, like what would his life be right now? You know what I mean? Like, and I always get so sad for people that just don't live for him. Like you don't understand the goodness and the fruitfulness and the faithfulness that he has for us. Like it's so good. And until you like press into that, like it makes me sad for people.
Because like I feel like people don't, like, they know who God is, but they don't understand. Like all they see is this like church facade, and I have to do everything perfect, and I have to I can't struggle, and I can't sin, and like all these can'ts. But instead of thinking like what I can't choose, think about what God can do through me.
And it, like we struggle, we sin, like we're not sitting in that pew perfect. You know what I mean? Like I just look back at my life and all the things that I've done wrong, but he still does it. He still does it, you know? Like he's still there. He's still working. He's still making moves. And you know what? You just have to press in, and you have to be for him and live for him. And that is like, you have to sacrifice, but that's okay, because look how much he does for you. You know,
like your life now compared to what's in heaven. Like it's insane. Like everyone's like, well, I don't want to sacrifice what I have now. But think about your future. So many times today we struggle. We want like me now instant. Like that's what social media has done, and like Amazon, you know, like all this stuff. But like we want like me now. But like, wait, look in the future. Like how good is heaven gonna be? Like all this trial and tribulation, and like you said, going through life without the Lord, like imagine it. But going through life with the Lord is good. But what you have on the other side of the earth is so much better.
Yeah. And like you said, in the waiting, like there's so much good in the waiting, even though it's super annoying.
Tell me about it.
I'm the worst at the waiting. But like, it's so like on the other side of like some of my waiting, I'm like, God did so much work in me.
In the waiting.
Like God did so much in me through that waiting, and like through my family and through all of it. Like I appreciate the waiting now, even though I hate it at the time.
Like, but now it's easier to recognize like that's what God's doing is in the waiting. Like, so going back to like sticks and bricks, if he would have revealed like bricks right at that time, you would have been like, what the heck?
I would have been like,
so let's keep going on bricks, because I forgot they don't know what bricks mean.
So so I got the sticks, went through all of the struggles of life, like bad, down in the dirt bad, but I got through it, went through it, got back up top. And so we were at it was Sunday morning church. Your dad was actually preaching that morning. He was filling in for something, I don't remember, but he was just going on, and just in the middle of the sermon, God spoke to me, and he was like, pick your stick up and go, and there's your bricks. And I was like, but what are the bricks?
Well, there's the bricks. I get the bricks. Like, what are the bricks?
And so I was just like praying when he said that. And I'm like, but God, like, what are you, like, where am I going? What am I doing? What are the bricks? And he said, pick your stick up and go. And he spoke faith fellowship to me. There's your bricks. And I said, what? Okay. I was like, okay. So I texted your mom in the middle of church. Don't do that. Don't text.
No phone touch.
Don't text her. But I texted her and I said, and because mind you, I've never been to your guys' church before. Never seen it in my whole entire life. And so I texted her and I said, is Faith Fellowship made of bricks? And she screenshotted me a picture of your guys' church and was like, yep. And I said, oh my gosh, I found my bricks. And she was like, what? And so then I had to wait till after church to tell her. Because
just for context, guys, Faith Fellowship is where is in Houston. So in 2019, me and my family, my dad moved to Iowa to where Kelcie lived and took on a full-time leadership role there as a youth pastor. And then at the time by then we had said that we were coming back. Had we yet?
When I got bricks.
Yeah, when you got bricks.
Yes,
yeah. So at the time, my dad had been called back to go to come back to Faith Fellowship, and so that's kind of the context of Faith Fellowship.
Yeah. Because your mom had told me previously, probably like 4 months prior to me finding out bricks that you guys were moving back here to Missouri.
So that's what we're talking about, like when bricks wouldn't make sense if like he told you bricks then before we even knew we were going back.
Yeah, because he spoke that to me a year before you guys moved here.
Yeah.
So
isn't it crazy? Like God's hands in the detail. Like wow. Yeah. Like in 2018 he speaks that to you, and you don't move until 2023. Yeah. That's crazy.
Yeah. So we've been here almost 3 years. So 22, I think.
22. Okay. Yeah. So 4 years in the waiting.
Yeah. I know.
Yeah. But that's so crazy about like the wonder of the Lord. And that's why I love the word wonder. Like the wonder walk. Yeah. Like you got your calling and you just walked in the wonder of the Lord. And so he was ready for you to go.
Yeah. Like, and I know, like you said, if you would have spoke that to me any time previously to that, like I would I wouldn't have obeyed. Yeah. I know I would not have obeyed. I ain't going to Missouri. Like, you know what I mean?
6 hours south.
No, thank you. But yeah, so he revealed that to me, sticks and bricks. He said, pick up your stick and go to Faith Fellowship. And I was like, okay. And what's really cool about it is the church was made of bricks, obviously. Yeah. And then when we moved here, our house was made of bricks. Yeah. And then our business was made of bricks and everything.
How God just weaves that.
Yeah, it was crazy. And so anyways, all that to say, like Gracyn said, I waited 4 years for that to be revealed to me. Yeah. And then the way God has moved since we've moved here has even been crazier. I never would have thought this for my life, especially being youth pastors and all the things. And the first year we were here was the year that that God spoke to David at Summer Scream about becoming a youth pastor. And we didn't even think it was going to be this soon. He just was like, this is what you're called to. And we're like, okay, God, we're praying about it. We're just walking the wonder walk of God. And so we just kept walking and praying and trying to figure it out. And then next thing you know, 8 months later was like, boom, like here you are.
Like the crazy, like God's timing is always perfect. Like it's like 4 years, but then it's like bam, bam.
Yeah.
It's like, it's hard like for humans to understand, Yeah. Because I'm thinking and I'm like, God spoke something in my life and I'm waiting and I'm waiting and I'm waiting. And then it happens and he speaks another thing and boom, right away it happens. It's like, it's hard for us to just not get, but his ways are perfect. And so we just have to be content with that.
Yeah.
Because sometimes I feel like as humans who want to know it all and want to have a plan, like that's me. I want to have a plan. I want to know it all. Like I'm a perfectionist, like everything's got to be in order, planner, everything.
Yeah.
But the Lord doesn't work like that. He reveals at his perfect time and does things his perfect time. Because in the waiting, he's working.
Yeah.
And so when it's finally time for him to reveal, whether that be 8 months, a week, 5 years, 10 years, like whatever it is. But by the time you get to your promise, then you're ready.
Yeah. And I, like you said, being ready, I was, and that first year that he revealed it to me, I was nowhere near ready. Yeah. Nowhere near. Even the sticks and bricks thing, I thought I was crazy. I was like, this makes no sense. And even like when we were getting ready to move here, I could tell like people that we love, that love Jesus, I could tell them sticks and bricks and they're like, oh yeah, like that's sense. God. Yeah. Like that makes sense to them. But if I was to tell somebody else that doesn't love Jesus or doesn't walk with Christ, they would be like, you are nuts. You are actually crazy.
Yeah.
Like you know what I mean? Like you are actually crazy. Yeah. And so most of the time I didn't share my testimony with like non-believers because they just are going to be like, you are seriously crazy. Yeah. But so that's why it was really hard for me to explain to a lot of my family, like my close family, like my parents and stuff, they understood. But like my other family, if I would have said sticks and bricks, they would have been like, you are literally crazy. We are going to tie you up and not let you go to Missouri because what is wrong with you? You know what I mean? Like, and so it's just crazy that God shows people that love him like in such mysterious ways.
Like such crazy wonder.
Yeah.
So for someone who's struggling with hearing God or being able to decipher if it's him or themselves, what kind of like advice would you have for them?
I would say like God, for me, I guess everyone I think hears him in different ways. I would say for me, like his is always a super tender voice and like I always know and it's always weird.
Yeah. Like, it is like, when you talk about like voice, is it like when you can like audibly hear, or is it just like something in your spirit?
It's something in my spirit, but also like thoughts. Does that make sense? Mm-hmm. And so like I always can tell when they're his thoughts, and I can tell when they're my thoughts, which is really weird. But I could also tell when it's the enemy's thoughts, because the enemy rules your thoughts too.
You have to be able to decipher the difference between the enemy's thoughts and the Lord's thoughts. And you have like all these thoughts coming through your mind, and you have like the Lord or the enemy, and you're constantly like, this is the Lord. Okay, keep it. This is the enemy. Get rid of it. Yeah. You have to be able to decipher, and you can't just push it to the back and not give it a home. You have to say, this is the Lord, I'm going to cling on to it, or this is the enemy, I'm not. Yeah. Yeah. And I would also say, like, when I was going through that crazy torment part of my life, like, I didn't hear him. Like, when you're so far from him, like, it's so hard to hear him. And so even though like when I was in that pit, like I was still like in the word and all the things, but like the enemy had grip on me. Like I couldn't get away from him. It's not, I wasn't holding on to him. I just could not. Like I was getting tormented. And I'm sure it was the enemy and all of his clan, but like, cause that's what it felt like I was just being held down and suffocated and like all the things. And so, I mean, even though like I was in the word and I had my people rallying behind me, like I could not hear him. I didn't feel him. I didn't hear him. I was just, and I was also angry and sad and mad and just all the things. And so I would say, like, when you're far from him, it's hard to hear him. Yeah. And so when you're in that pit, like you have, like we've talked about, you have to have those people, but also like, don't give up, keep seeking after him. There's a point in life, like in our faith journey, it's called a journey for a reason, because sometimes you're on the mountaintops and sometimes you're in the valley. Yeah. And I feel like sometimes when we stop hearing or like feeling God, that we just get so discouraged. Yeah. And I can like talk that from my standpoint, like I've been a pastor's kid my whole life. And so there's points in my life where I'm like at the high point, like I'm on fire for Jesus. I can hear him. I'm feeling him. I'm in the word always, all this stuff. And then I get to this point and I'm like, I'm still in the word and I'm still on fire, but I feel like I can't hear him and he feels so distant. Yeah. But he's always right there. Yeah. Yeah. When you're going through what you're going through, and when I was struggling with hearing the Lord, he's always right there. Yeah. And he's waiting. He's waiting for you to be like, okay, let's go. Yep. And there's nothing, like, huge disclaimer, guys, in Christianity, there's nothing wrong with going through seasons where you don't feel so close to the Lord. Yeah. There's nothing wrong with that, because it's called a season for a reason. Yeah. Life is constantly seasons. Yeah. You're constantly going through stuff, and your faith walk looks different. Yeah. Mine and yours faith walk right now is extremely different. Yeah. And we both go to the same church. We're both in the word. We're both like, we're living life for the Lord, but our faith walks are different because we're different people and we're at different points in our life. Mm-hmm. So we cannot compare our faith walks to each other, because that's only going to push you away from God. Yeah. Like right now, I could be hearing from the Lord and hearing his presence, and maybe you're not. Right. And we are both still Christians who love Jesus and are going to go to heaven. Yep. There's nothing wrong with not being able to hear the Lord. Yeah. But you can't be like, I can't hear the Lord, I'm done. Yeah. Like you can't, when stuff gets hard, don't just be like, I'm done, I quit. Yeah. You have to keep going, because he's always working. Yeah. And I think you also have to rely on the Holy Spirit a lot. Oh yeah. Within 100%. Like to hear him, my best friend, and to know that it's like him. You know what I mean? Like you call on the Holy Spirit and you're like, is this, like, when I hear something that I think I hear from God, I always pray, like, is this from you? Yeah. And then I always either get confirmation, something in the word tells me, like, it's, you have to rely on the Holy Spirit too. Yeah. You can't just rely on your own. And your thoughts are never, things in the Lord are never going to contradict the word. Yeah. So if there is even a slight contradiction that goes against the word of this thought that you think might be or might not be from the Lord, then you know it's not from the Lord. Yeah. And I think sometimes even like, let's say you're praying for like a decision or whatever, like say you're going to buy a new car or something, and you're like praying, like you want to hear from the Lord before you make a decision. Yeah. Sometimes like, I think God leaves it up to us to make the decision. Like it isn't always like you have to hear from him. Yeah. Now I'm not saying on all decisions, because there's a lot of decisions you do need to hear from the Lord before you do it. But I'm just saying like a silly ones, you're buying a car or like something. And like, sometimes it is him. And so that's why it's always good to like ask, like, Lord. Yeah. But also like, if you're filled with the Lord, then your decision is going to be His best will for you.
Yep. Yeah.
And the biggest thing, something I struggle with about like getting ready to go to college and things like that, is like knowing what I want to pursue and where I want to go.
Yeah.
And my mom told me, and this is something that changed my life. She said, whatever you do, where you go, what you want to be, as long as you have the Lord with you and you do everything in your life 100% for Him, then it doesn't matter.
Yeah.
It doesn't matter if I go to school at Columbia or if I go to school in Springfield or if I go to school in California. Like the Lord is going to use me either way. Now I am going to inquire of Him and be like, Lord, what is the best you have for me?
Yeah.
But if He like leaves that decision up to me, no matter what I choose, He's going to use me.
Yeah.
And it's not going to throw off His plan for me.
No, not at all. And He's going to open the doors to be open, and He's going to close the doors to be closed.
Yeah.
Like,
and sometimes there's going to be 2 doors that are open. Yeah. And this is what's so amazing about the Lord is like He gives you free will.
Yeah.
So like He's not, so many people are like, well, He's just going to tell me what to do and I'm going to do it. And He's going to play me around like a little puppet. No, like the Lord gives you free will. Yeah. So you inquire of Him and you make the best decision with what He's told you, with the word, what your godly friends are telling you.
Yeah.
And then you can go make that decision.
Yep. Yeah. 100%. I agree. And it's so important to realize, to lean on Him in those times, but also like, it's okay. Like you can make those decisions and walk with Him at the same time. Like it's so good. Yeah. Yeah.
Amen. That's so good. So good. Yeah. So guys, just like kind of a recap, like the Lord works in mysterious ways. Yeah. And there's nothing wrong with it. And there's nothing wrong with questioning the Lord. There's nothing wrong with going through hard things. Yeah. But what God says will come to pass.
Yeah. Even in the waiting. Even if it's 4 years.
Yes. 4 years.
Of a long 4 years. But it is good. And always remember to just keep seeking Him. No matter where you're at in life, if you seek Him, He's going to fulfill what you need. If you are in the pit, if you are on the mountain, if you are just in a little valley, like a pit is way lower than a valley. Yeah. But like, you know what I mean? Like wherever you are, He's going to meet you and He's going to guide you to where you need to be. And so just keep seeking and going after Him. Because when you stop, that's when trouble's.
That's when it all comes down.
Yeah.
Yeah. That's good. All right. So we end the podcast with asking some fun questions. So first one, this is like the hardest one, and so I'm going to get it out of the way. What is your favorite worship song? And it could be like, I could say a better like question would be like favorite Christian song. So like rap, country, whatever.
You know, I like country.
I know you like country.
I would say, just to go along with this podcast, because this song was the one song that got me through like my pit days, was I think it's Into the Sea. It's so good, and it's something like if you're struggling, it will help you get out of. It's amazing. Like it's a really good worship song. So
that's awesome.
Yeah.
So Into the Sea by Tasha Layton. Okay. We are going to add that into our Work Toward Wonder Spotify playlist, and that will be linked down below. So go hop on there. We have 2 songs now.
Yeah. It was just one that during that season I just listened to on repeat because it just pulled me out. Yeah. Like
it's good to find that one thing. Yeah. It's like, I got like, this is my keep going.
Yeah.
And like in that season, just like go back. You found yourself listening to like worship music.
Oh yeah.
You're not listening to like the secular, like I am depressed, I'm anxious.
No.
Blah, blah, blah. Yeah. No, like you have to be.
I had to.
You had to because if you didn't.
That's all I had to hold on
to.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. For sure.
Good. Okay. Yeah. Next question. Favorite ice cream flavor?
Oh, favorite ice cream.
I love them all.
I love, like, you know me, I'm not a huge ice cream person.
I know.
I like ice cream. So if I was to choose like a favorite ice cream, it would be like a caramel, like cookie dough caramel-y flavors. Good. Yeah.
I like that.
Yeah.
I like that.
When I have to.
When you have to eat ice cream. See, me on the other hand, I'm like, I will eat ice cream every night. It's like my downfall.
I know.
Next question. What is like your go-to outfit? So like you're going, this was what I used last time. You're going to the mall and you're going shopping. You like go to.
I would say mall and shopping. Probably some jeans, sneakers, and a graphic tee.
Yes.
Yeah.
Or the cargos.
Yeah.
Like throwing the cargos
pants. Yeah. Because they're comfy.
They're comfy.
And
you can like move.
Yes. Yeah.
I like
that's
that.
mine.
Yes. All right. Final one. What is something unique about you? Something like people aren't going to know.
No, people aren't going to know about me.
Yeah. I mean, you're pretty mysterious.
I know. So, I mean, it's kind of weird. So some people know this about me, people that know me, but like I grew up on a farm, but also in the city life. So I'm like a mixture of country and ghetto at the same time. If you know me, you know. So like my whole life grew up on a farm, raised on a farm, all the animals, all the things. But also my mom's side of the family was, I was raised in the city. And so I have a little bit of country and a little bit of ghetto. And it's
the best of both worlds.
And everyone's like, what's your style? Are you country or are you city? And I'm like,
it's a mix. Look at me. If you weren't here, you could be everything.
Exactly. Yeah. And so, and it was so funny because a lot of people I grew up with were country just because of the town I lived in, but my friends would be like dressed all country and I would be a little bit of both. And they're like, what even is your style? And I'm like, Kelcie.
Kelcie style, and it's cool.
Ghetto,
that's perfectly fine.
Ghetto slash.
Yeah. Ghetto slash country. Like ghetto's not the right word.
No. I mean, whatever. Kind of. Anyway,
yeah.
So.
Guys, we are so grateful that you came and watched today. Such a great conversation about how good the Lord is and how He's always working. And even though it may seem a little mysterious, like Kelcie's style,
yeah,
but it's like a little mysterious, but like how good He is, in that you're never stuck. You can keep going.
Yeah, for sure.
Thank you guys so much for watching. If you haven't checked out the first episode, but we are going to be uploading every other week on Wednesdays. So also follow on Instagram at Work Toward Wonder. And we can't wait to see you guys next week.